Thus far, it's been a great journey. We started with nothing but a single text editor, and now we're on our way to completing an awesome self-hosted database-driven website. If you missed any of the previous episodes, click on one of these to go and view them. In this, the last episode, we learned how to create a database for our website and use it to store and deliver content. What's a database? A database is a means of organizing data. And there are several types of databases out there, but the one we'll be using is called MySQL, which we installed a couple of episodes ago. Here's a brief rundown of how a database is structured. Inside your database will be a list of data storage objects called tables. The data within each table is then categorized by columns and stored in rows or records. So how do you create a database? Well, the WAMP software we installed provides two main ways to manage databases. The first is called phpMyAdmin, a graphical user interface which most web hosts use. The second one is a MySQL command line interface. I'm actually going to be using this method because, believe it or not, it's much easier and faster. So go ahead and launch it, and when it asks for your password, just hit enter because there isn't one yet. So for obvious security measures, let's go ahead and make one. By default, your username should be root. So type set password for root at localhost, which is our server, equals password, and then create a password. Type show databases to view the default databases. Then to add our own, just type create database followed by a name for your database. When you hit enter, it should say query OK, which means the command was successful. To jump into our new database, you can use the use query. Next on the list is to add some tables. The create table query followed by a name for your table will do just that. To save time, we can also go ahead and specify the columns for our table. I'm going to make 3: ID, username, and password. Then we need to set what type of characters each column will accept. ID is going to be numbers only, so type int for that. Username and password can be both letters or numbers, so type varchar for them. For these, we can also set the character length limit. I'll set username to a 20 character limit and password to a 100 character limit. Let's make the ID field so that it doesn't accept null values and so that it automatically increments with each record. Lastly, we have to set the primary key. I'm going to assign that to the ID column. You can type show tables to view what we just did. Now all we need to do is add some data to our database. To add a new record, you can use the insert into function using your table. Then specify the columns you want to put data in. Since ID is set to automatically increment, we can leave that one out. Then using values, insert the values into their respective columns. If you want to add a layer of security, we can encrypt the password before submitting it. To do this, use the MD5 command before your password. To view the contents of your table, type select star from and then your table name. You should see the values in all 3 rows and your encrypted password. Not only is your database now set up, but you've also had a quick lesson in database queries, which we'll use a lot later on. Now let's go ahead and switch over to our website. Pull up the welcome.php page first. We were using this page to verify our login credentials. We're still going to do that, but this time we're going to check them against our database values. The first step is to connect to the database. To do this, use the MySQL connect function with the server name, your MySQL login, and your password. Then set all this equal to a new variable. Then check to see if there is a connection. If not, kill the process and return the error. If so, go ahead and select the database. Now this is going to be our main connection script. So to make things easier, let's cut it out and paste it into a new page with PHP tags and then save it as config.php. Now at the top of every page, we can just type include config.php so that it connects to the database. Now that we're connected, let's verify the login credentials. Let's remove this variable and make one for the username. Next, we need to query the database using the select query where the username field equals our user check variable. Set all this equal to another new variable. Then we need to actually run this query and check to see if it returns any rows. If it does, go ahead and start the password verification. If not, just say that the username was wrong. To check the password, we need to take the entire array of data from the record and store it in a new variable. Then let's adjust our if statement so that it checks to see if our pass check variable equals the one in our database. But for this to work correctly, make sure that you encrypt the pass check variable first. Alright, that's it. If you want, you can change these to the user check variables. Otherwise, test it out and you should see the exact same results as before. Now let's open up our index.php page and add include config.php to the top. Then jump down to the isSet statement, and instead of showing the greeting, let's create an HTML table that displays data from our database. Make two columns, one for user ID and one for the user name. Let's start another row, and to make it so that a new row is added for each database record, we need to create a while loop that creates a new row while there are still records that exist. Then just add the ID record to the first column and the username record to the second column. Echo the closing table code and then add the database query to select all from the user table. Then save it all and test it out. After logging in, you should see the database information displayed in the table. Let's add one more thing. Let's make a way to add a new record to the database. Copy and paste the login form code above the table and say add user. Point the action to add user.php, which we'll create in a second. Then change the name fields to add username and add password. If you want the password field to show dots instead of letters, you can change the type to password. Lastly, change the button to say add. Now let's create a new document and save it as adduser.php. Begin by adding our HTML template and then be sure to start the PHP session and include config.php. Then make a new query using insert into just like we did before, and add the values from the form fields to it. Make an if statement to run the query and return any errors. Otherwise, say user added. Save everything and test it out. Now after logging in, you should see an add user form that lets you add users, and then it updates the table with that new user info. One more quick thing. If you wanted to make an admin type area for your website, after the isSet command, you can use this script to show the content to a specific user only. In this case, that user is Gigafied. With everything that you've learned here, you should now be able to make a pretty awesome database-driven website. If you want more information as well as the code used in this video, you can find all that at the wiki link below. I look forward to seeing some of the awesome things that you guys can create. Alright, be sure to check out tinkernut.com on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. That's it for this tutorial. For more, go to tinkernut.com.